Well, welcome to the Business Spotlight series. My name is Tanner O'Brien, senior partner here at ActionCOACH in Central Texas, and I am excited to be sitting down with Chad Sakonchick, the founder of BetterLegal. So excited to have Chad here. Chad, thank you for taking the time. We're going to be, jumping into some conversation around your business, around your journey into entrepreneurship, into business, just in general. Share some best practices, maybe some challenges. Just really share a sneak peek into what it's like to building and operating a business out there today. So first off, thank you for taking the time. I'm excited to be jumping in here for kind of the audience. Let's just start off with just a little bit of background. If you would, share a little bit, just a brief overview of what your background is, and tell us, what is BetterLegal?
All right. So my name is Chad Sakonchick. I've been a kind of serial entrepreneur or failed serial entrepreneur for basically my entire career up until now, assuming this doesn't blow up. And I started out of college. I worked at Dell for a year, just, answering the phones. You called the 1-900 number or 1-800 number to buy a computer, and you got me. Then I really wanted to start a company. So I quit, and I was living at home with my parents for the first 3 years outside of college. So 22 to 25 lived with my parents. I worked for my dad's friend who did septic tank installation and maintenance. And so I basically dug holes in the ground, whether that was manually or with an excavator. I changed out pumps for people that were broken, all while I was moonlighting with a site at the time called rentacoder.com, which is now Upwork. It got bought. And I basically was hiring developers, always trying to work on something. My first thing was called Posema, which my company that I've got that since college is called Poseidon Imaging. It was just the first 3 letters of Poseidon in imaging. And so it was just basically kind of like a Squarespace competitor. Didn't really take off. But I had just been doing that the whole time. I worked for a company called Pervasive for about 6 or 7 years, where I did integrations between Salesforce and QuickBooks. And then that got acquired, and my Skunkworks group got laid off. So then I kind of bumbled around the Austin startup community for a little while, worked for a company called Aceable and Student Loan Genius. Eventually sold my house and said, I'm gonna be an entrepreneur. I had, some good equity that I cashed out on. And I worked on a site called Space Sift, which is, in hindsight, a terrible name because it's hard to say and pronounce. And it was kind of like Airbnb for event spaces. Okay. And the goal was just to be able to say, like, oh, I've got a product launch or a happy hour, a birthday or whatever. What is around that has a patio and, is Mexican or, can hold this many people and yada, yada. That didn't work out because none of the event spaces want to tell you anything. They don't want to tell you what their costs are because they want to figure out what your budget is so they can squeeze it. It's like calling an enterprise sales software company where they're like, well, what's your budget? And they're always working up that direction, and they don't want to tell you whether they're available or not. So that didn't work out. And then I had a friend who was a sole attorney. He left his law firm, became a solo attorney, and he just was not picking up a lot of business because he was frankly charging too much for his services. He was on Avo and UpCounsel and all these other kind of hire a lawyer websites, these directories, and he was quoting people at like $1,500 for a LLC formation. And people were like, "Oh, well, LegalZoom does it for $600. So, why do I need you?" And he's like, "Well, you can come to my office and we talk about your business and da 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 da." And in reality, it was really just, he had a boilerplate operating agreement that he got from a continuing education course from the law school. All these lawyers have to go do these continuing education courses, and they have different focuses. And then the professor lawyers that are up there from different universities all just kind of like, hey, we've been working on this document and updating it for the local laws over the past year. Here is free for everybody. And then the lawyers take that and charge you $300 or $400 an hour to fill in the blanks, and then add any other clauses and things that are custom to you. But let's be honest, most people, if I'm just a carpenter or a plumber or a baker or whatever, I'm not looking at waterfall payouts and push-pull whatevers. I just want to get started. I want to be protected. I want the basics. And these documents have been updated over literally hundreds of years because a corporation corporations have been around for hundreds of years before the United States existed. And then an LLC basically became a simpler form of a corporation. And so all of these agreements have been kind of like twisted and turned and manipulated to where it's the core essence of what they are. And so what a lot of these lawyers are doing are taking these stock documents, whether they get them from Westlaw or their law school, and then they're just kind of filling in the blanks and adding other things on top of that. And so instead of charging $300, $400 an hour for 3 or 4 hours of time, we agreed on just let's charge $299. And then there's the state filing fee in Texas is $300. So we agreed on $599. And then he was basically having to, I built the automation to automatically fill out that document. So instead of him going in Word and finding all the highlighted spaces that he was going in and filling in, I just generated it with Zapier, Typeform, Web Merge, and Asana as kind of my cobbled together original toolkit to get this done. And then it just evolved from there. So that's kind of where we're at now.
I love it. I love the finding a need out there and then starting to look at what are ways that we can build something around that. So let's set the stage for kind of the viewers, the listeners at this point, because I always like to kind of get a sense of where the business is today and kind of how it's structured. So generally speaking, what does your current ownership structure look like? And by this I mean, are you sole founder? Do you have business partners? Do you have outside investors? Kind of what does that look like for you? Because I know that sets the stage for how different things are operating within the business and some of the conversation we'll go through today.
Yeah, so we started as an LLC for multiple years, and then bootstrapped it for a while, then brought on some angel investors. But then the more people we brought on, you had to then, the slice of the pie is this big. So every time you wanted to add or raise a little bit of money, you basically had to get a signature from all of the owners. And so that's the difference between an LLC and a corporation, really, is that an LLC is like there are 100 units. And I'm simplifying this greatly, but an LLC is essentially there are 100 units and I have 50 units and you have 50 units. So if we want to bring someone else on and give them 10 units, then I have to give up 5 units and you have to give up 5 units. And so we have to agree on that. And so then when you add more people, it becomes more complex. So that's why the vast majority of businesses in the United States are LLCs, because they're not adding investors all the time. So a corporation makes this easier to where you have 100 units, but then you just add another 100 units. And so then you add 100 units and then you sell those new units out. So you start with 100 units, then you have 200 units, and then you have 300 units. And that's why your ownership kind of dwindles over time instead of taking the percentage out of your unit chunk in an LLC. So we converted from an LLC to a corporation officially a couple of years ago. And now we're just a full-on corporation. We're a Delaware corporation. So we were a Texas LLC, then we became a Delaware corporation with a Texas foreign entity. And so then you get into the whole thing of, why Delaware, Wyoming, or Texas or whatever. And generally, and this is not legal advice, but generally you file in the state that you do the work in. And so investors love Delaware. And so you form the company in Delaware as the domestic or the state of origin. And then you have to file an additional foreign LLC. It has nothing to do with foreign as like a foreign country. It is a foreign as it not the original state. So foreign from the original state. So domestic in Delaware, foreign in Texas, and that's our current setup.
Very cool. I appreciate you going through that because that's I think that's something for the business owners and the entrepreneurs that do follow these and watch a lot of these. We don't talk enough about is just kind of what does that look like, things like that. So I appreciate you kind of walking through what that looks like for you. I'm always curious as your journey is kind of unfolded, especially with with BetterLegal here. What role do you currently play in the business?
Whatever hats exist, I'm in. So I'm kind of a maestro, I would say. So, I dive deep solo into something and I learn it first. So development, I developed the original system and then eventually we hired developers to do that. Marketing, I did the marketing, I did the Google ads, I did the Facebook ads, I did all these things initially, and then I hired people. And then, the organic, the social, so YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, I did these things myself. And then I hired people. So now I'm kind of more of a manager of all of these tiny groups of people. And so just to be clear, BetterLegal has 0 employees. BetterLegal is 100% contractors, including me. So my company, Poseidon Imaging, is actually a contractor of BetterLegal. And then everybody else we work with is also a contractor of BetterLegal. And some people are hourly and some people pay a flat fee a month and they just manage it on their own time because it's not work that needs to be done every single day. We basically pay for their expertise and their skill set, and they jump in whenever they feel the need, or if there's an urgent need, they do that now. So that's essentially how that's laid out.
Beautiful. I love that. That's some really good context. I want to highlight that point you made of um, going very specific and going all in, learning it yourself first, and then hiring out for a lot of that. I think that's
I want. Sorry to interrupt. I want to touch on that because one of the biggest mistakes, other than patience, other than lack of patience, the biggest mistake I see people make is that they just think that they could just pay for something. And, someone comes up and they say, oh, I know how to do this thing and pay me $100,000 a year and I'll do that for you. We have hired 4 different people that used to be employees of LegalZoom, and they were worse than awful. They promised all kinds of stuff. Oh, I started LegalZoom when they were $10 million in revenue, and I helped drive them up to $100 million in revenue. That person did not do that. That person was on the train when the train was moving, and they got on at $10 million and they got off at $100 million. And so every single LegalZoom and former LegalZoom employee that we have hired has been just abhorrent. And so I like to get in first, do the work, understand what is necessary. And then I know and I do most of my hiring on Upwork. And so if someone is, I know what to ask for, and I know when someone is BSing me, and I know when they're overpromising, and so I can just leave. So the biggest thing that I can say to anybody, the best advice that I can give is to do the work first. And if someone promises you something, do not sign a year-long contract. Do not be able to get in and get out. So it's okay to do this test. It's okay that we hired these people. The problem is that we held on to them for too long. We had too many people saying, well, give them more chance, give them more of a chance. And it was terrible. So I would say hire fast, fire fast, but also know why you're hiring. If someone just says they'll do it for you and you're not willing to learn yourself, you're not an entrepreneur. You're not willing to do that extra bit. Then you're just someone who is getting VC money and then giving it to other people, and you're just the flow through.
That's so powerful. I mean, anyone watching this, pause, rewind, rewatch all of that again, because it very, very important lesson to learn on that. And I don't know the number of business owners I've had the privilege of chatting with that have gone through. Whether it's hiring outside contractors or employees or things like that. And they just didn't know enough about the role to ask the questions they needed to find out if this person was actually going to be the level of competent they needed for the role that they were building in. Got to know a little bit of it. And that goes from get in, start doing it, figure it out, and then go hire people that you can actually address and understand how can they get you the results and how do you manage it. Much easier when you have a better context of that. So I appreciate that. But let's talk a little bit about what makes BetterLegal so special. I know we've talked a little bit about it so far, but when you look at kind of who primarily does the business serve? If I'm, on watching this video later on and I'm sitting in the audience going, how do I know that BetterLegal's the right fit for me, whether I'm, starting up a business or maybe have some other service that I may need? Kind of walk us through who primarily y'all look to serve.
So the number one thing that makes us unique, and it's so simple and it upsets me so much because it's also the number one reason why we haven't grown faster, is because we are the only company that provides a one-stop, one price, no upsell service. So we charge $299. Now we do have subscription services you can add on to, but these are required things by the state. So you can choose to do these things yourself, or you can hire us to do them. But overall, we do not nickel and dime you. So it's $2.99 for that service of filing the state filing, getting your EIN, which is your tax ID, generating the legal documents, and getting you all of that information. Now, we also charge the state fee. So state fee in Texas is $300, Colorado is $50, Florida is $125. So it's $2.99 plus the state fee. But every single, and we do it as fast as the state does it. So if it's in New York, we can get it back to you within an hour if you do it during business hours, because New York is instant. Texas is 2 days. So we get it to you in 2 days. Every other provider, every other business formation services provider does this little game of, what do you need? Do you need the state filing, just the state filing, or do you need the EIN as well? And EIN stands for employer identification number. And most people that are just starting out, they might be great at their craft or whatever they do, but it is such a terrible name that the tax identification for your business is called an employer identification number. What if it's just me? What if I'm not employing anybody? Do I need an employer identification number? Yes, because it's your tax ID for your business. It's your business's social security number. And people get confused. And so all these other companies say, oh, well, the bronze plan is free or $49 and you just get the state filing. But do you want the EIN? That's an extra $100. Do you want the legal documents? That's an extra $100. It's going to take it's going to take 30 business days, which is 6 weeks. Do you want that faster? And I always wonder, does that mean that they're taking your money and literally sitting on it for 2 weeks before they do the filing, getting it back, and then sitting on it for another 2 weeks before getting it to you? That is the number one thing that differentiates us from the others. The other thing is that we curate our partners. We've got partners that we're like, this is a good partner. What are your next steps? You need a bank account? Do you need accounting? Do you need bookkeeping? And we only have a few partners. They basically like sell your information to whoever they can sell it to. Or they try to do all this stuff in-house. More recently, you'll notice that LegalZoom is like no longer kind of being LegalZoom. They're like LZ Tax. So they can provide tax services, so they can like grow. They're a $500 million year company. They've got to grow. And so they're offering bookkeeping and accounting services and banking services and all these other things. And it's like, is that really what they're good at? Are they good at this, or are they just spinning it up so they can get more revenue? And so what we want to do is we want to focus on the things that we know we're good at. And right now it's business formation services. But the other thing that we're kind of straying away from is, instead of becoming this business in a box type company where it's like you form your business with us and we do your logo and we do your bookkeeping and we do your banking and we do your taxes and we do your insurance. Like, instead of trying to do everything terribly, we want to do a couple of things. And BetterLegal, legal is in our name. We are going to kind of lean more into like AI and legal contract making and deciphering of contracts. So right now we actually have a brand new AI product out called BetterLegal Assistant. You go to betterlegal.com/assistant. And basically, if you're reading a contract and you don't know what this paragraph says, you can copy and paste it. It's a Chrome extension. So you click the little B, it's a B and an L actually. The little pane comes out, you paste that paragraph in, you say explain, and it breaks it down into something that a second grader can understand. So you can kind of be like, oh, that's what this very complex, weird, verbose sentence says. It basically says this. Okay, that makes sense. So we're doing that. That is a free product that's out right now. We're going to start doing things like uploading a contract, extracting out every element of that contract, telling you what might be missing from the contract, what are real world scenarios of how these things that are missing from the contract can negatively affect you, extracting parties, dates, definitions, dollar amounts. So like, how many times is it, oh, there's a 10-page contract and there's like when we owe you the money and when we have to cancel and all this other stuff, like that's just kind of hidden within a 20-page document. Let's pull that out and put it into a bullet list so you can put it on your calendar, your spreadsheet, or whatever. And so that's what we're really leaning into is how can we actually help the small business person that no one else is helping with? And the legal system, unfortunately, is failing them because they're just not, they're charging $300-400 an hour. When we converted from an LLC to a corporation, we hired a law firm and they didn't give us a quote. They charged us $23,000 for a simple conversion from an LLC to a corporation. After the fact, because this is something that one of our board members kind of spun up, when I went and got after the fact, after we got the invoice, and I showed other lawyers this bill, they were like, what are all these line items that just say attention to this document? What does that mean? Does that mean they're just picking up the paper and putting it on the other side of the desk? There were 5 attorneys from $300, $500, $700 an hour on this conversion when it should have been 1. So my dad happens to be an attorney. He read all of this stuff and was like, what are all these line items? What were all these people doing? Were they just emailing each other, talking about this stuff? And so people are terrified of talking to an attorney because they don't know if the attorney's good. We've had attorneys where they've written contracts for us and they've written stuff for us, and they've just missed, we're doing like a grant agreement, and they just missed their little thing that they didn't fill out, their little blank thing that they didn't fill out. And so what I want to do is provide things that help people either feel more educated. And so they take a legal document, they're like, I understand this now. It's the equivalent of having the internet and being able to run comps on like a used car. Like when you used to go in and look at a used car, they tell you it costs this, and you just kind of be like, okay, I guess, like I trust this person. But now you have like shop around, you can get educated, you can see what these things cost, and you can be more educated before you go in. So now, even if you're hiring an attorney, and I think that attorneys have their place, when you're hiring an attorney, you can get a document and say, is this a good document? Does it provide the things that I need? You can ask that document questions and say, this is the scenario that I'm afraid of. Is this, does this protect me? And if it says, well, no, then you can go to your attorney and say, hey, this AI says it doesn't do that. Can you assure me that it does? And then if they say yes and it doesn't because you get sued later, then you can go to the attorney and say, hey, I brought this up to you. Or if you're just running a simple agreement, like you and I were just running a simple agreement, I want to lend you my lawnmower, and then you like ditch it. We had a verbal agreement, but what if it was just agreement on paper and it was just a little bit more formalized? Like people shouldn't be afraid of those types of things. And that's what I want to move into. And I think that's something that will really, really help a lot of entrepreneurs. And so that's kind of where I want to focus my time.
That is fantastic. I absolutely love everything you just shared, and for sharing it so passionately, and with the excitement of what is to come there. So thank you so much for that. I like to ask a couple of questions around marketing, because it's an area that many business owners kind of struggle with. So as you started off on your journey, you had kind of mentioned a little bit ago on learning some of the different marketing channels that you needed to learn to get the message out, to that sort of thing. What did that journey look like for you? Kind of what different channels, marketing channels did you all use? What did you see was most successful for your type of business, and how has that evolved to today?
Yeah, so it actually for a very long time was Google Ads, because how do you capture someone who wants to file an LLC in a particular state? They ask Google, how do I do this? And so it was very easy to, just pay Google for that. Google's gotten more competitive over time. Some of our competitors that are just have either IPO'd and raised multi-billions of dollars from an IPO, or they raise multi-billions or hundreds of millions of dollars from SoftBank and they jack the prices up. So it's got more competitive over time. But we've started to do more SEO, where we're starting to focus on, how do we, instead of just trying to sell people, what a lot of people have talked to us about that they liked about us early on is that our form, when you go in and you're filling out the form, we try to educate you as you are filling out the form. We ask who are the managers and members of an LLC, and people, again, like I referenced the EIN earlier, what is a manager, what is a member? And it's just a very simple thing. It's like the manager is the operator and the member is an owner, and you can be both one person can be both a manager and a member. That's it. It's simple. And so we add those little things throughout the form. And we recently, over the past couple of months, have relaunched our form to be even more helpful, and people just really, really flock to it, and we get so many compliments about it. So we've really decided we just need to focus on education and educating people. I've got a YouTube channel that has over 50 videos now, where I basically just cherry pick initial questions people ask us in chat. I do kind of a little Khan Academy breakdown with my little clip art people, and I talk about different scenarios. And I think that education just helps people understand who we are, and it helps build credibility. And so we're kind of leading in that direction. So our TikTok is starting to become really popular. I think we've got almost 25,000 followers on TikTok now, that we talk about different businesses you can start with all these new tools that are out there. These are older businesses that you can like disrupt. These are new tools that you can use to do this new business that didn't exist 5 years ago. And so we're really going to do more of that type of thing and lean more into social and SEO and just kind of getting our brand name out there. So we have just less reliance on the Google ad thing.
Beautiful. I absolutely love that. And I do want to be respectful of time. So, as we kind of start to wrap up here, I've got a few rapid fire questions. We've covered a ton of ground, tons of great nuggets. So I'm going to, again, remind everyone who is watching this, pause it, go back, rewatch some of these areas here, extract out these nuggets so that you can actually start applying them in your business. But rapid fire questions. I know we could probably go fairly deep on a couple of these here, but 4 quick questions, kind of top head answer best you can. First one here, what is your key to success?
I said this earlier, patience. I think it's patience and grit kind of fused together. I think people want to be successful and they think that needs to happen now. And if it doesn't happen within, a couple of months, then they need to cut and run and do something else. I have been working on businesses in general since 2005, since I was about 25 years old. I'm 42 now. It's been almost 20 years of me just grinding and trying to do this and failing and failing and failing. And you've got to know when to just like ditch the idea. Some ideas just don't work out. And I've experienced, and some ideas are good. We're just not there yet. Like Uber wouldn't have worked 10 years earlier. So you've got to have patience and say, okay, this is a good idea. We're just not ready yet. So maybe it's not my next business idea. Maybe it's the business idea after that. And then when you decide to do something and follow through with it, you have to have grit and you have to follow through. You've got to go through the ups and downs. I try to practice when I have a really big success. I try to temper my excitement and say, hey, something bad's going to happen. And I need to kind of, instead of being like this, I need to be kind of like more, less dramatic in the downs and less excited about the ups and temper more towards the middle. And just like, I also say this on Twitter all the time, left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot. Something's going not your way. 5 things in a row don't go your way. Just keep left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot. Not every day is going to be like that. You just got to get through the bad days.
I don't know if this would necessarily have a different answer, but what's your one piece of advice that you give to business owners overall?
Write more stuff down, documentation, processes. When you are starting out, you are the hub of everything. And so then as you add people, these people become the spokes. When you add a certain amount of people, then you're always the hub. And so if you continue to be the hub, you stress yourself out and you're just having to talk to more and more and more people. And so you need to kind of facilitate something where there's processes and documentation, and you need to foster people talking to each other without you in the middle. And especially when everybody's a contractor, like in our situation, it's taken a long time to try to get people to not go through me, send me something for approval and then me send that to another person, just say, hey, why don't y'all just talk to each other and leave me out of this? And trust those people to do that and not be upset if it didn't come out the way you wanted because you did remove yourself from that.
I love that. What's one book that you're either reading now or have read most recently?
Right now, I am reading, it's a biography on Walt Disney. I just finished a book called Super Mario. I'm fascinated with Nintendo lore. I think, so these are podcasts, but listen to the two-part series on Acquired. There's a podcast called Acquired, and they do a 2-part series on Nintendo. They're 3 hours each. And then they have books in their kind of episode guide where you can follow up with these other books. But Nintendo actually in its heyday was one of the most powerful companies that was out there. And they pioneered a lot of the things that actually make that Apple has repackaged for the iPhone to be so dominant in the industry. And so that kind of goes back to, maybe this idea is right for now, but maybe it's actually going to be a better idea later. So like the App Store, Nintendo was the first one to do that. Taking a small chunk of every developer's product, Nintendo was the first one to do that. So yeah, Walt Disney, I think Disney and Nintendo are companies that have stood the test of time, and they're good things to study.
Very cool. I love that. And kind of final rapid fire question. When you look at your business overall, if you had just one area that you would choose to improve magically overnight, what area would you look to improve in your business?
Probably always distribution. It's like the first time, second time founder conundrum. The first time founder focuses on product and then releases it to the world and wants to know why nobody wants it. And the second time founder is like, how do I build distribution before I even have a product? How do I build an audience? How do I get people excited about this and talking about what I'm building before it's actually out there? So by the time I launch, I have an audience of people that are chomping at the bit to get it.
Love it. So before we wrap up with the final question of the interview, where can folks go to find out more information to connect with you? You mentioned a YouTube channel as well. Kind of where should we send people for more information and just continue to keep track of all the amazing things you all are building?
Yeah, BetterLegal is on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. I focus most of my time on Twitter, so it's CSAKON on Twitter. And I just basically share, I share our revenue, I share wins and losses and just little quips every day. So
beautiful. I love it. And I will link as much as I can in the video description below. So once we are wrapped up here, make sure you go down, check out all of the wonderful areas to learn more and make sure that you do follow and get in contact. So Chad, as we wrap up, I always like to end on kind of one very specific question, and that is this: what is most inspiring to you today?
man, the easy and the kind of cop out answer is AI. It's just gotten so insane. Like people can't shut up about it, but I also understand why. It's like 2 years ago, everybody was talking about crypto, but like crypto wasn't actually helping people on a daily basis. People were like trying to shoehorn use cases into it. But AI is actually doing real things. I'm generating real images. I'm generating real copy. I'm generating real strategies. I'm doing real things with it. So yeah, if you're not kind of on the A bandwagon, you're falling behind.
I love it. It is absolutely fascinating to watch how fast kind of the popularity of that has exploded in just
Yeah.
the last few months. So, but Chad, no, I appreciate it. This has been an amazing conversation. Lots of great nuggets, legal things, business building wise, kind of everything there. So definitely worth a rewatch if you're watching this right now. But thank you so much for taking the time. It's been a genuine pleasure.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.